And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to this special NBA Trade Line edition of The Pressure Cooker. I am Anthony Irwin, host of a few shows on the Silver Screen and Roll Podcast Network. I'm joined by Jazz King, who does what I do, but for Liberty Ballers, and I'm joined by Brady Klopfer, who is the site manager for Golden State of Mind. Two guys, basically, who are, perfectly content with what their teams have done and what their teams appear to be getting ready to do from this NBA trade deadline. Jazz, obviously, the story, and I'm also going to bring in Paul Hudrick, also of Liberty Ballers, there, Brady Klopfer. I want to talk, we obviously have to start with Paul and with Jazz about the biggest story of the season. What? How did Jazz? How did this go from not engaged to trade done? What is it? 6 hours later or something crazy? How did all that go down?
Well, we've been talking about it on our podcast network, Paul and I think I've seen Paul more than I've seen my own family over the past couple of weeks here, and just in terms of on streams and stuff. But it was weird because this whole thing came about, like, we started hearing about Harden, like 3 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. It's always kind of been there. And then we started to hear, and like this morning, Steve Nash said, no, he's not getting traded. And then all of a sudden, less than, 2-3 hours later, the deal's done. I think it went from Daryl Morey kind of, I feel like, knew this in the back channel, and we talked about this earlier, Paul, that the NBA's tampering rules are a joke. I'm sure they've talked about this on their own.
Hey, and we don't want to know. We don't
want to know, but we know. We still know. We can't act like we don't. And I think that's the issue here is what happened in this one. I think Harden just kind of went to the Nets and said, look, I'm leaving, right? Like, there's nothing you guys can do to keep me here. He let his agent know. I'm sure he might have known Michael Rubin know, somebody he's close to who's involved with the Sixers ownership. And I think this thing just started building and building and building. A lot of posturing between the Nets and the Sixers behind the scenes, whether that's reaching out to some of the insiders that we see with guys like Woj and Shams and Brian Windhorst and their likes, but the likes of those guys. But I think this is where it came about is that Harden really just basically let them know that I'm not going to re-sign. They have an opportunity here. I actually, honestly, from my end, think it's a bit of a win for Brooklyn too, because I think Ben Simmons is going to be a good fit with that roster. And considering where the Sixers were at coming into this one, they're still a very good team in the East. Now this elevates them to, okay, they're a legitimate championship contender. And we've talked about this a lot on the Liberty Ballers podcast network, is coming into this, the Sixers were top 4 or 5 team, but they were still below the likes of Brooklyn and Milwaukee if those teams are healthy. I think now that this is done, the Sixers are right there. So I think this thing was in the works for the last couple of weeks. I think that Harden and his camp maybe let the Nets know and let the Sixers know that they wanted to do this. And I think Daryl Morey, being the wizard that he is, was able to get this done.
I'm just so bummed. Like
why are you bummed, Anthony? Because the Lakers haven't traded Russell Westbrook yet? That's not our fault. Okay, we're enjoying our deadline day.
Yes, I'll pick up more on that stuff from Paul here in a second. But Brady, the Warriors, I think, have been either the best or the second best team in the NBA for the entirety of the season, and this deal takes the player, I think, who you can make it a real argument for playing the best basketball currently and for a majority of the season, and Joel Embiid, and pairs him with, a bona fide all-star for most of his career. So that changes what Philly might be capable of. This also gives the Nets a little bit more of a defensive presence that they've clearly needed. In Ben Simmons, if he's right, they get some more shooting with Seth. So on nights that Kyrie Irving isn't quite literally can't play, I think they improve in this deal also. Between these two teams, given where you're standing and where the Golden State Warriors are standing, do either of them make you nervous about your matchup should you meet in the finals?
Both of them. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, I think both teams clearly got substantially better than where they were before. I mean, obviously, Philly bringing in James Harden for someone who wasn't playing for them anyway is a massive upgrade. And I think just from a fit-wise, I think it makes sense for the Nets here. All these moves, I think they're going to get better on both ends of the court, assuming that Simmons actually plays. So, ultimately, both teams, I think, got better. Both teams are going to present a challenge if the Warriors make it to the finals and meet one of them. But, at the risk of sounding like a player or a coach, after a game with some cliches here. At the end of the day, they're only going to have to face one of them if they make it to the finals, and it might not be one of them. It might still be the Milwaukee Bucks. It might still be the Miami Heat, the Chicago Bulls, whatever. So, I think the Warriors especially would not want to face this version of the Nets team, just because I think they know firsthand how dangerous Kevin Durant is if you can put some shooters and some playmakers around him and some people who can play a little bit of defense, which now they have Ben Simmons. They presumably have that. But I think the Warriors would love to face the Sixers, or at least the fan base would, because I think the opportunity to beat James Harden in an even higher stakes level than the Western Conference Finals is
just torment him for the entirety of his career.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, it has to be like Steph Curry doing the introduction or something like that. So, I think that's the best case scenario, but it's a high risk, high reward situation.
Shams just now reporting that the Washington Wizards are sending Spencer Dinwiddie to the Dallas Mavericks. That's an interesting one. We'll see what that all looks like. There was some talk earlier this morning about the Mavericks potentially sending Kristaps Porzingis north of the wall. So we'll kind of see how this plays out. But Paul, from where you're sitting now, were you surprised at the 2 first-rounders, Seth Curry being involved in it? I mean, the major one, I think, if I'm a Philly fan, is that you keep Thibault and you keep Maxey. Obviously, you get Harden. But were you still surprised that the 2 first-rounders was really kind of gave me pause in this one?
Well, I think it's kind of like what you just said. I think the 2 first-rounders are so you don't have to give up Maxey or Thibault. I know that a lot of people reported Thibault was kind of the sticking point, and what was kind of holding everything up is that Morey refused. He refused to let go of Thibault. And if you look at it,
such a valuable player for this era of basketball.
Yeah, and if you just look at it from a standpoint of, the Sixers with 2 picks, fairly Thibault, they had to trade up with the Celtics and other things, but outside of the lottery to get Matisse Thibault and to get Tyrese Maxey, that's not normal to get 2 players like that outside of that's something the Warriors do. No, but yeah, to do that, you'd have to think it would be really hard to replicate that. So you keep the players, you know what I mean? You know what Thibault is, you know what Maxey is and what he can be. So clearly both of those guys right now are more valuable than 2 first-round picks, especially considering they're helping you right now. Especially Matisse Thibault, with Ben Simmons not being in the lineup, they're missing their stopper. They're missing their best perimeter defender. So to hang on to Matisse, who is clearly that right now, you've seen it in some of the matchups recently. He gave Devin Booker all he could handle the other night. What he did to Steph earlier this year. I mean, this guy is, I think he's probably going to be an all-NBA first-team defensive pick this year, I would think. And I think at some point in his career, he could challenge to be a defensive player of the year. I think he's that good. Offense is obviously where he's struggled, but when you bring in a James Harden, that's going to cure a lot of those ills. So, yeah, I mean, to me, that's such a huge win for Morey to not have to give up either one of those guys. Losing Seth Curry hurts. He's been so good for them, so underrated, especially his chemistry with Joel Embiid, how he's really helped Joe and open up some space for him with their, the dribble handoffs and the horn sets and all that, and what that's done for the Sixers offense. But you got to give to get, and to put James Harden in the offense, it obviously elevates it to a completely different level. With Drummond, I'm a little bit surprised the Nets wanted Drummond. I mean, with all due respect to Andre Drummond, because he's been good. He's been a good backup center for the Sixers. Like, he really has been. You do have the Andre Drummond experience where stuff just gets weird sometimes, and he does, makes weird turnovers. You guys know, what you're very well aware, Anthony.
Well versed.
Favorite Laker of the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But with that said, they get Millsap back. I don't know what Millsap has left. He clearly has not been a part of what the Nets have been doing, and he's struggled this year. But I would suspect that either Morey is going to make another move before 3:00 to get a center, or he's going to be looking at that buyout market to see what he can get as far as a backup big. Like, I don't know, like someone like Tristan Thompson, if he gets bought out by Indy. I mean, listen, they only need a guy to play 10 minutes a night in the playoffs, less than that, because your best player is Joel Embiid and he's not coming off the floor. So I think they're okay losing Drummond because how good Joel Embiid is and the minutes he's going to lug in the playoffs. They don't really need a big time player as a backup center.
Can I interest you in a partially
Anthony,
used DeAndre Jordan? Yeah, is that
no,
No.
ridiculous. But sorry to cut you off there, Anthony. Paul, I want to ask, what about Charles Bassey? I like what I've seen from him. If he's going to get maybe 7-8 minutes a game as a lob guy and as an offensive rebounding machine, I don't mind that fit there. But again, going back to that, Anthony, again, this poor, I would say an expletive, but I'm not. We got 20 minutes left till the deadline. Was dying to see the Lakers do something. They've done nothing. So this has been kind of a more of an enjoyable deadline for us than it is for Anthony.
Yeah, I would probably say so. Also, so we said that Shams broke that Spencer Dinwiddie would be going to Dallas. Dallas is sending Kristaps Porzingis to the Wizards. This is wild. This is crazy. That I have thought to this point that Dallas has actually outperformed my expectations. I wasn't particularly high on Jason Kidd as a coach, especially once he started talking more about how they need to shoot fewer 3-pointers and focus a little bit more on the mid-range and do all these things that normally with Luka teams would not particularly go very well. They have done, I think they're in the 5th spot right now. They're in 5th right now in the Western Conference, 32-23, and they're moving a significant chunk of their identity. I'll go to you again, Brady, on this one because this is a team that you could have faced. No, you're probably not going to face them. But is this a team though that without Kristaps, he's always injured, he's always dealing with something. Getting Dinwiddie in there, who his not exactly met expectations either. It feels like kind of a lateral move for the sake of a move, but do you have anything else to add on that one?
Not really, honestly. I mean, I feel like Kristaps has just been such a disappointment in Dallas. And so to me, this really just feels like Dallas wanted any way possible to get rid of him without having to attach a serious amount of draft pick compensation to it. So I think it is a lateral move. I think the good thing for Dallas here is that I think Dinwiddie is a player who is more likely to kind of recover to his better self now in Dallas, and then he becomes a more interesting trade piece than I think Porzingis ever was. But in terms of short-term movement, I think they get a little bit better just by not playing Kristaps Porzingis anymore and getting to play their bigs who work better with that system. It was just such a clunky fit, and it's one of those awkward ones where sorry to bring up a sore point here, Anthony, but a little bit similar to the Lakers and Westbrook, where it's you can't not play this all-star who's getting paid a ridiculous amount of money, but unless you're Frank Vogel. Better, unless you're Frank Vogel. Apparently that you can, but it's ugly. It's ugly if you try to bench one of the highest paid guys who has all-star on his resume. But it's also ugly if you try to play one of the guys who just doesn't fit your team and isn't playing particularly well at the moment. So at least with Dinwiddie, I mean, truthfully, I think Jalen Brunson's probably playing a bit better than Dinwiddie this season. So I'm not sure how much Dinwiddie actually fits in, but at least it's a smoother fit than Porzingis. But ultimately, I think Dallas is kind of bound for mediocrity.
It seems based on Stein's reporting on this one and his spin after a trade happens, it seems like they're just trying to dump his contract. They see it as he's already been tough this season, and you don't figure his body is going to start magically healing as he goes further along into that contract. So, I mean, it's crazy that, somebody who was considered a unicorn is now just salary fodder is kind of wild how quickly that happened. And yet this is what you kind of have to do. These are the tough decisions that you have to make as somebody starts their decline. You get what you can for that player while you can. Sabrina Merchant, you're hopping in here. You are coming off of the Clippers beat. You are heading into more WNBA coverage. The Clippers made a move of their own today, sending Serge Ibaka to Milwaukee and getting kind of spare parts for him. Did that land on your radar at all? Is this something that really kind of raised your eyebrow? Because I think Hartenstein has just been better this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers did a nice job of showcasing Ibaka right before the trade deadline, starting him a couple times while Zubac was out, and he had that excellent game against the Lakers, which I think, sort of proves that he can do something if he's given some opportunity. And obviously with the Brook Lopez situation in Milwaukee, it's a worthy flyer because Ibaka is a free agent this offseason. The interesting thing about the Clippers is like we made so much fun of the Lob City Clippers for never having a small forward to play next to their big three and JJ Redick. And they have 75 wings on this roster. They have so many wings on this roster. I have no idea how Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye, both of whom played at Duke, by the way, have any business factoring in to this roster. I don't understand where the minutes are coming from. I feel bad for Amir Coffey, who apparently no longer has a roster spot to get promoted to and is still stuck on his two-way. But yeah, just to get off of Ibaka and play Hartenstein more, I think is ideal because you could kind of see that Hartenstein was regressing while Ty Lue was playing his 3-center rotation. There just weren't enough minutes for him to go around. And he has openly said that he is uncomfortable when he's in a minutes shortage and like he makes a mistake and has to worry about being taken out. So I think it's just good for Hart that Ibaka's out of the way. I think it's good for Ibaka that he's out of the way because he was also unhappy not playing. So it's just like a good vibes clear up for the Clippers, I think, which is not such a bad thing to happen at this time of the year.
Jazz, does this make the Bucks more or less concerning to you because they get a center now who slides into that Brook Lopez role who hasn't been available all year, might not be available. This told me that I don't think he's going to play this season. But if Ibaka can give you anything from that kind of spot 5 position when Giannis isn't playing there, does this make the Bucks more or less concerning to you? And Paul, as people who are sitting about as high as you sat all season, I'm so freaking jealous, man. I can't even talk right now.
I'm so jealous of all the teams that got rid of their toxic energy. So jealous.
Yeah,
you just did, Sabrina. I don't
off this. Then he's the toxic energy in this little show that we're doing here. So.
Sabrina, you did that before the deadline. You brought Raj. You swapped Raj in for me, and then look, that show got way better.
Anthony, to answer your question, I like the move for Milwaukee. You're not getting anything much from your center position, anyways. Obviously, with Lopez out, Serge Ibaka clearly not what he was even a couple of years ago, but still gives him an element of defensive presence. Is able to kind of hit some outside shots and space the floor. So to me, I like the fit for Milwaukee. I think this, if you're looking at the totality of the moves so far today, and we still have about 13 minutes left till the deadline, I think the Sixers, I think Milwaukee now have a little separated themselves a little bit from the rest of the top of that pack of the Eastern Conference. So to me, I like the move for Milwaukee, and it's definitely a little bit more concerning. I don't want to say totally, but a little bit more concerning if the Sixers would take on this squad in the playoffs, and hopefully that's an Eastern Conference Finals matchup.
Paul, how do you feel about the Bucks?
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on what Jazz touched on, it is kind of a nice kind of fill in for Lopez with him not playing and, a guy that can stretch the floor a little bit. I will say that, listen, no one could stop Joel Embiid one-on-one pretty much. It seems like all the guys that we thought could kind of don't anymore. But Lopez did give him a hard time. He was a big body. He did play him physically, and he had an impact on him. I'm not sure Ibaka can do that. I expect Milwaukee will aggressively try to double Joel Embiid, but I don't know how you do that since now there's this guy named James Harden with the Sixers. But yeah, Ibaka does slide in nicely, and I think he will help Milwaukee a great deal. I'm with you, Jazz, and I would probably say that I would throw the Nets in there too, because I do think Ben Simmons will make a positive impact. I think defensively alone he will, and then I think without the pressure of having to handle the ball so much and being kind of the third guy with KD and Kyrie. And I actually think Ben fits extremely well with Kyrie because Kyrie is not a point guard, right? I mean, he's really a small scoring guard, whereas Ben Simmons is a large point guard. So I think they could have a nice little chemistry and they could probably run some pick and roll stuff. And I think they could actually play really well off each other. So I'd still say the Nets are really in that mix. And I don't want to rule out the Heat because the Heat are just so damn deep. I'm a little concerned about how Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry are going to look, once the regular season's over and those guys aren't getting any younger. But yeah, I think those 4 teams that I just named, I mean, they're all right in the mix. And I think Milwaukee, I was already worried about Milwaukee before getting Ibaka, and I think Ibaka does slot in nicely to fill that void that Lopez has left.
Yeah, the East, that second round and on in the East is just going to be a bloodbath. It's just going to be a straight up bloodbath that you know, if you're a Western Conference elite team, you know, you're basically, if you're the Suns and you're the Warriors, you're just trying to get to that conference finals, and not having a round as difficult as those Eastern Conference teams are going to be coming off of on that side of the bracket is going to be a real advantage for whatever team comes out of the West. It's an interesting one. We're welcoming in Christian Rivas of Clips Nation. We were talking about the idea of moving Ibaka, opening up a little bit more space for the crowded center position that they had there. Little known fact is, everybody probably knows who are watching this. Myself, I do this for Silver Screen and Roll. Sabrina is also a Lakers fan. Christian, you're also a Laker fan. Unfortunately for all of us, we're just kind of sitting here waiting with 10 minutes left, as Alexis is telling everybody, as Rob Pelinka is just immersed in The Alchemist, right? He's just really involved in the audiobook that he's listening to. Is there any chance whatsoever, Christian, that the Clippers buy out a couple of their wings and the Lakers just kind of slide over and they get a couple guys or a guy at a position that they just severely need more depth at? And you're muted.
Hello.
Hi, Christian.
I guess my answer to your question would be another question, which is, why in God's name would they do that? Like, I think they wanted to clear their center rotation, and they did. And if anything, I think they'll, in the 9 minutes they have left, they'll probably try to land a point guard. But I mean, they're fine with what they have right now. I think their roster, in terms of the players or the teams in the bottom half of the Western Conference, like on paper, probably isn't as top heavy as a lot of teams. But as we've seen with the other LA teams, sometimes that's not such a bad thing. So we'll see what happens. I'm getting increasingly pessimistic that, like, anything else big happens from a Lakers standpoint. I think we'll probably get a salary dump, but you know, anybody hoping for a John Wall, which, how dare you if you're hoping and praying for it for John Wall?
How dare you? How dare me? What?
Yeah, I mean, listen, John Wall would not be the get in that Rockets trade. I personally, I don't know if it's been established on here, like, but I would not trade Russ in a first for John Wall. That is outrageous. No way.
I mean, it would depend on if it's Wall and something, right? If it's Wall and Gordon, or if it's Wall and, like, even Tice. Like, I think at that point you consider it. It was funny to see Lakers fans last night hop on Twitter to say, "See, Russ isn't the problem." It's like, oh, did you notice the type of players that they had out there? Did you notice that it's Malik Monk and Stanley Johnson and Avery Bradley and all these guys on minimum contracts? Like, that's partially because Russ is there. And I think, like, Talen Horton-Tucker, I thought, played one of his better games of the season last night when Russ wasn't around. Don't think that's a coincidence. So I even if it's like Wall and he doesn't play, I think there's a legit argument at this stage that the Lakers would be better just not having Russell Westbrook on the roster. Is that asinine? Like, am I going?
Yes, absolutely. No way. Like, having a player is better than not having a player.
Have you watched him?
I have. Yeah.
I mean, you watched the game last night too, Anthony, right? Like, they could have benefited from just a little Russ, just a little.
Like,
they got a little Russ on the sidelines. I was totally. It was funny to see after the game they were like crediting Russ for like showing up and clapping. Congratulations!
I'm so glad
for
he
not
traveled to Portland and clapped on the sideline.
Yeah, way to go! You're not actively rooting for the Portland Trailblazers there. Although it would have been great if we got another one of those gifts. Like, remember when he like slid over and he was trying to like sneak a bite? He's like sneaking a clap when they hit a late shot. There, he's like, hey, let's go.
You know what the funny part is? Paul, Brady, and I are just sitting here with smiles on our faces. We're like, yeah, all right, let's enjoy this. And then you three are just sitting here like, man, we really have had to sit through this for the last 5 hours, and the Lakers haven't done anything.
Nothing.
Well, Anthony, I'll ask you this right now. So if a Westbrook deal doesn't get done, Are they better just saying, you know what, screw it, sit on the bench and we're going to roll without you at this point for the rest of the year?
I think you kind of have to. I think one of Frank Vogel, Russell Westbrook, or Taylor Horton Tucker had to go. I thought today, the relationship between Frank and Russ is clearly severed. Like they're both sending shots at each other after games. It's not going to work out. So I think if Russ doesn't get moved, I think
Eric Gordon trade.
Oh no, and it's not to who?
It's
Is
to
it
Toronto.
To the Lakers?
Oh wow,
That's fun.
Eric Gordon, Daniel Tice, and a second rounder for Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn. That feels like a salary dump for Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Are you that high on Chris Boucher playing next to Christian Wood?
I do like
What are the
Chris
Texas
Boucher.
teams doing? I don't understand.
Sixers should
Where's
work their
this-
way into that to get Chris Boucher. He'd be a nice fit.
he would be a great fit actually
Can he play
Who's-
next to Joel?
Well, I'm saying as a backup,
as a backup.
okay.
Yeah.
play especially a
Isn't that what Paul Millsap is?
Well,
He's a backup. Okay,
I was gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah, we need somebody to fill in the
I
role.
thought Paul
between them.
Millsap was a perfectly fine backup 5 last
he's
year
got a
in Denver.
pulse. No, listen. If he's the guy he was last year, that's a great deal for the Sixers. But if he's the guy he is now, then that's not so much.
Where's the report on who's reporting the Gordon trade?
Chris Haynes.
Oh,
Really? Why am I not seeing that?
yeah, I'm not seeing it at all.
Did you get got?
Maybe he deleted it.
Hold on.
Hang on.
Did we get got?
Yeah, there's nothing from Chris in the last half hour.
Yeah, I'm only looking at
But
my main page. I don't know what happened
let's
there.
wait for the
Someone must have
details.
retweeted
Yeah,
it
'cause
to
I
my
didn't-
timeline, and then yeah.
Oof. There's still
I'm so
hope.
sad about these people retweeting things into my timeline. Yeah.
There's
Maybe
still
there are more
hope.
pieces.
Yeah. No. There's no way Houston would do that.
Oh
there's
yeah,
no
it's a fake. I just found it too. It's
Okay,
a fake
okay.
account.
Damn it.
Man,
should
it's a
have
good
a
thing I wasn't
tally.
on Twitter because you would have retweeted that and I would have totally.
Oh no, I'm not
quote-tweeted
touching retweets at this point.
it.
I'm not gonna be the reason people see fake things.
So if the Lakers stand pat, though, yeah, that is a fake account. And Nikias just got. Oh, and Harrison
and
just got
Kaminsky
got.
Harrison
just got
got too.
Oh no!
Oh, Harrison. Oh.
Oh man. Okay, so it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. All right. I feel
I
bad.
like that the best moment on here is us watching our colleagues get got by a fake account. That's the best.
Dude, and
Stream of
the handle is
Lost
Bo Flows. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Put it in our. Oh man. Everyone, it's in our Slack chat now too. Goodness.
Did so
Can we just talk about Dallas
Harrison.
real quick though? Just real
Yes.
quick. I know none of
Yeah,
us are
let's do
actually
that.
Mavericks
Mhm.
fans. Giving up on Porzingis, one thing. How can you say that getting Spencer Dinwiddie and 4 more years of Davis Bertans back is value when you already have Jalen Brunson? Are you just planning on not re-signing him this offseason? Like I don't understand how this makes Dallas better in the present or the future.
I just can't quite figure out why Mark Cuban would be interested in Davis Bertans.
Like KP is already
Not-
Latvian. Like
So apparently, Wilbon just said that Cuban and Spencer Dinwiddie were at some kind of NFT gallery.
Of course.
Oh my!
Good old NFTs.
Oh,
Yep.
Amazing. So that's what I saw. Like some
what
Sixers fan
does it
had a
mean,
great.
like an NFT gallery. I don't
Yeah, I don't know.
understand.
I thought they were all online. Were they on Google? Like what?
It's an online gallery.
We
I
were just
suppose.
having a
I don't
Zoom
know.
together.
I saw
They
like,
all
a
got
Sixers,
their phones out.
a
Like
Sixers
how
fan
is
post
Dinwiddie
like
playing
gallery.
this year with Brunson and Luca, and then you're just deciding you don't want Brunson next year? Like I don't understand the logic there.
well, Brunson's probably gonna walk, right? There's no way they can keep him.
Well, they can. They have his bird rights. They can go as far as
Make
they
that
want
work.
to be able to keep him. So like,
Yeah, but he's unrestricted, so
but-
he can do what he wants too. Like, does he want to be
Yeah.
on a team that
well, especially
just
now.
acquired Spencer Dinwiddie to be his
Right. I
And
heard there
will
were
he get
starter, backup?
mixed
I don't know.
whispers, which would make sense.
Oh my God! There's 1 minute. The Lakers aren't going to do anything.
Nothing
It
here
just-
from the
it is
Lakers.
just occurring to me.
All right. How quickly before we get fan protests at the crypto.com arena?
Hold
That's
on.
the real
Ti-
question here.
Ties to the Celtics.
Are we waiting for
Can
like
they?
a?
Why does Brad Stevens like to reacquire guys?
Oh, there he
'Cause
goes.
he doesn't have to coach him now.
Houston is trading Daniel Tice to the Boston Celtics. Huh.
Okay, well that's real Woj.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
trying to
first it
get-
was Iko or Eco, Kelly Eco.
Yeah.
But
trying to get the band back together. Tice,
It's
Horford.
It's so funny to see. We always see this, right, with coaches turned executives or coaches with executive duties, that it always comes back to players that they saw play well against them or played well for them. And this feels another example of that for that with
But if the Celtics are picking up salary, they have to be shedding something. There's no way they're going into the tax. So is this like a Schroeder deal? Who's leaving?
I don't know. It's
weird.
It's interesting. I mean, we're gonna turn this over to Spaces here in a
Dennis
second.
Schroeder, there we go.
Okay.
What is Schroeder? Okay.
To Houston.
To Houston.
But
they already have.
Are they going to buy him
get
out?
bought out?
Yeah, he's got to get bought
to the
out.
Lakers.
I think.
Back to the Lakers. We did learn that he was willing to back up Russell Westbrook. If I have to believe anything from this week's sourcing.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's going to do it here for this special pressure cooker deadline edition. I want to thank Jazz for your work in helping put this together. Brady, Christian, Sabrina, Paul, thank you guys for coming on during one of the busiest days of your guys' calendar. Cannot wait to do more of these and laugh again at the Lakers. Laugh in general. I just, it'd be nice to be able to smile and look at the sun and not just think, man, that's going to lead to a migraine. I'm Anthony Irwin. This has been The Pressure Cooker. We'll talk to you guys next time.